Talking about Rivian and about cars of the future, our next speaker, Nemanja Tiosavljevic, all right, senior manager at Rivian, will take us on a deep dive into how Rivian uses data to enhance user experience in their software-defined vehicles. From identifying user trends to optimizing decision-making, this session promises a fascinating look into the future of connected car. Nemanja, the stage is yours. Please.
After you. Oh. Hi, everybody. Oh, that's loud, sorry. So I'm Nemanja from Rivian here in Belgrade. Thanks for joining me today. We'll be talking about our infotainment system and the platform that we developed in order to derive insights around what our people do with our infotainment system and how we can enhance that experience. Let's just go briefly through the plan for today. So we'll talk about software-defined vehicles as a general concept that's dominating the car industry at the moment, and that is a big enabler for what we're talking about here. So user-centric experiences, data-driven decision-making, data-driven user experiences. We'll leave some time for Q&A at the end of it. So in terms of introductions, I'll start with about me. So my professional journey took me from University of Belgrade to the UK via Germany. I work at Qualcomm, at McLaren, and now I'm at Rivian. My experience with Rivian, as you can see it here, I had the opportunity to drive the car, both of them. So we have R1T at the top, so it's a truck version of our flagship vehicle, and we have R1S at the bottom of this slide. They are amazing cars. Apart from R1S and R1T, we have electric delivery vans. Also recently, we announced R12 and R13 and 3X. You can see them in the middle and on the right of the slide. Our mission is to keep the world adventurous forever. What that means for us, we are creating transportation solutions for adventure and exploration. Rivian is an American company, but we have ever-growing global presence. We have offices in Canada, we have offices in Europe, and one of the big sites here in Belgrade, which was the core of creation of this analytics platform alongside our colleagues in Palo Alto and Vancouver. So just to introduce software-defined vehicles as a concept for those that might not be familiar with it. Essentially, software-defined vehicles are a paradigm shift that's happening in the automotive industry. Vehicles are no longer just about transportation, but they're becoming smart hubs on wheels, really. So they're sources of data, they're sources of unique experiences for drivers, they're getting better over time. So that is driven by a variety of developments in industry. So hardware improvements, software improvements, connectivity, fast internet that's widely spread is enabling car manufacturers to offer experiences that haven't been available before. One of the main drivers for that is over-the-air updates. So at Rivian, we send a monthly update to our drivers. So imagine your car getting better over time, which is completely opposite to your traditional car. With that, with the opportunity to create new software and send updates, we are getting infotainment at the forefront of innovation. So in our case, we build our infotainment from scratch, so it is bespoke solution, ground up, hardware, software, and anything in between. That also enables us to create data-driven features, so things like collecting data from our fleet to inform drivers, let's say around charging opportunities. So let's say based on the real-time charging, we can navigate drivers to certain charging sites based on the quality of the charges itself. So if you zoom into infotainment a bit more, what does user-centric infotainment mean? It's all about user. User is now coming from the world of mobile phones, of tablets, a variety of screens. They're expecting certain experiences, certain sophistication with tech, and certain level of innovation. So in order to kind of meet that, Rivian's approach to user-centric infotainment takes a couple of there are different facets there. So first one is design. So our design is very clean, very user-centric. It's designed in a way to add to your journey, but not to take away from it, so you can focus on your road ahead rather than on technology around you. Another layer there is a kind of that minimal design, which you will see, and also I invite you to kind of see our car at the booth downstairs. But what that means for us, we need to be really careful what we put on these screens and what sort of features are there for our drivers. One way we want to delight them, on the other hand, we don't want to overwhelm them. We want to make sure that experience is seamless into it too. Also, as you probably have noticed so far, we're all about adventure, so there is a plethora of adventure specific features, things like all-terrain modes, camping modes. We also have a whole array of accessories that you can buy for that adventurous lifestyle. In terms of continuous evolution of the system, we are listening to our customers in two ways. So one is objective feedback that comes in a variety of forms. So we have feedback forms in our apps. You can submit feedback as and when you feel you want to share something with us. We also run surveys, questionnaires with our users. So we also use social media as a source of information and feedback from our users. So what was missing there and what we are going to talk about today is that analytics layer, which essentially brings an objective data to the mix. So then we can kind of holistically understand how that user experience looks like. One thing to kind of mention here is we decided on the theme of building things from scratch. As we built our infotainment, we also decided to build our infotainment platform, infotainment analytics platform, from ground up. So in order to do that, we had to really understand how to connect our vehicle and our cloud, because in that automotive space, that is you never have that connectivity layer for granted. By doing also things from scratch, we have control over our entire stack. We have control over our data, which kind of feeds into the conversation on privacy. So we don't share our data with any third parties. So data is in our possession, and also that allows us to be really deliberate when it comes to privacy from ground up at every layer and every aspect of this system. So just to kind of unpack why we actually built this. So we had many questions coming from a variety of stakeholders within the business, from our product team, from design team, from engineering teams, how our users are using our product, and where are the opportunities for us to make that experience even better. So product teams would be interested in things like engagement metrics. As I said, we send our updates once per month. So maybe you want to understand how certain KPIs for engagement for certain elements of our infotainment are changing over time. So version over version, or even over entire year, are there any anomalies popping up, or are there any trends that we can spot and use to kind of inform further design updates and choices? From the design team side of things, they generally are interested more in user journeys. So when our drivers get to the car, what is the sequence of events? How do they get to the active navigation? How many clicks? How many interactions? Are they able to get to the outcome they want to get to? And how quickly they do that? Also understanding if there are any drop-off points in that journey. One interesting thing here that design team really always wants to see is heat maps. So when you have that limited space on that screen, where is the attention drawn? Where do people tend to click? And where are the opportunities to optimize the design? And ultimately, A/B testing is a kind of holy grail where we want to get to when it comes to analytics. So offering two different versions of a certain design for a certain feature and see which one resonates better with our drivers. In terms of engineering teams, they generally care about responsiveness and if there are any kind of frustration events in that experience. In terms of bringing all these requirements and questions together, we decided to build one platform, one-stop shop, one source of truth, one opportunity to actually do data quality checks, do collaboration between teams, all in one place. So ideas are getting cross-pollinated. So what's hard about this? It's a complexity of automotive space. So you have your vehicle, you have your cloud, you have interface in between. So then if you zoom into vehicle side of things, we have so many dimensions, starting with screens. We have infotainment, information cluster in front of the driver. That one is not clickable, but you can interact with it with beanstalks or through steering wheel commands. Also, we have central information display that's next to the driver, and we have rear seat display. So starting just with that, there are 3 screens. Then we have 10 plus apps in our vehicle. Then we have 6 plus ways of interacting with our system. So your usual clicks, you have also opportunity to talk to the car through speech commands, steering wheel buttons, also apps themselves, they become source of events. So let's say when you arrive to a destination, your navigation app will give you a menu that you arrived, so that transition becomes a source of an analytics event. Similarly, mobile app, if you're talking about things like trip planner, you want to maybe create a longer trip plan and then plan your breaks and have a road trip. Maybe you want to do that from the comfort of your home. You can send that trip plan from your mobile app to the infotainment system in the car. So that also becomes a source of events. Also, there are keys. We have, I think, 5 different ways to unlock the car. There's bracelet, card, fob. So that is, you can see how that space is exploding. And ultimately, what this makes even more complex and more interesting compared to kind of traditional analytics types of projects in your, let's say, mobile world or web world, is the vehicle context. So you want to understand if your vehicle is R1T or R1S that we've seen, or maybe it's generation 1, generation 2 of these cars. What's the version that is currently running? Is it connected to the internet or not? Is it being charged at the moment? Is it being asleep? Is it awake or asleep? Is it in park, drive, reverse mode, stuff like that? So there's tons of dimensions there. Another layer of complexity is keeping these 2 elements in sync, so our vehicle and our cloud. Whatever you change on one side, you need to propagate that change to the other side. Not entire fleet updates at once, so you need to be backward compatible and all that kind of stuff. So complexity. So how we approach that in terms of building an architecture that can enable us to deal with this complexity. First of all, we defined a very good taxonomy early on. We defined domains. So based on the previous slide, definition of domains and layers of data. And then that turned into taxonomy, naming of analytics events, which made it easier for our app developers to inject these events into the code. In terms of architecture, we developed anything that's in Orange here, that's what we built from scratch. So there is a Kotlin library that enables our developers to add events. There's also, in a runtime, we have the analytics client. Analytics client would collect events from all these different apps. It will pass that onto the transport layer. Transport layer consists of 2 nodes. There is a vehicle node and a cloud node. That is a proprietary protocol that we built for this and some other use cases that we have. Data is then sent through a secure data pipe via LT and Wi-Fi. And then once it hits our cloud platform, from the cloud node, we hand it over to the processing pipeline, to the cloud pipeline. So there are 2 elements there, ingest and processing. Processing will follow the medallion architecture of data. So we have bronze layer, which is basically our raw data arriving to the cloud. Silver layer is then creating these layers, context that we'll talk about in a second, generally cleaning and preparing data in certain formats. And then we have ultimately a bronze layer that is aimed at communicating our insights, whether that's a dashboard, one-off report, dashboard that's there, or version. There's a variety of ways that we communicate our insights. Going back to that privacy theme, so the first layer there is we de-identify our data. So we don't know what car is sending what data. So we cannot connect analytics data with any other data source that we have about our drivers. So data that we have is de-identifiable. The other layer of privacy we have is basically not so limiting the access to our bronze and silver layer of our data platform, which means only development team is there to work on it, but not broader audiences. So the broader audiences, stakeholders, will have access only to the final gold layer in the form of aggregated insights. So let's try to see how this looks in practice. There is a short video here in South America. So the sequence is very sped up. A lot of details is removed, but we will try to use data to uncover what was going on in this particular session. So it's a short video. There is a driver that appears in a remote location, maybe a desert. Maybe she had a long day of drifting there, having fun. At some point, she decided she wanted to go to a nearby cafe, wherever nearby that is. She got into her car, did some interactions with Infotainment, and she started her journey. So let's have a quick look. So, as I said, let's try to reconstruct what's happening here. So going back to the structure of our data, this is generally how our data would look in a silver layer. The data arrives as time series, then we split it into these different contexts, so then we can make sense of what was happening there. So let's start with the top layer of sleep context. So let's say this driver, she approached the car powered up, the infotainment screens have been awakened. Maybe at the beginning of the session she didn't have connectivity, it's a remote location, so that's a fair assumption. In terms of PR&D status, the vehicle was parked. We don't have that at the beginning of the video, but let's imagine that for a second. Actually, we do. And then a media app pops up on the foreground on a big screen. Basically, that's the app that was left when she switched off the car previously. Similarly, with the active media source, there was active Apple Music to start with. Maybe because of the lack of connectivity, she couldn't really find anything there. Then she tried to search FM radio for a bit, no luck there. And then she maybe went to Spotify. There was no connectivity, but maybe there's some offline content that she already has ready for the trip. So she left Spotify playing throughout the entire journey, as you can see, running in parallel. But on the big screen, on the CID screen, she switched into navigation. So there, she said, "Okay, I want to go get some coffee, refreshment after the demanding day in desert." So there are a few ways that you can start a navigation in our infotainment. So you can search and type your address or a specific term, or you can go to points of interest menu and select category that you're after. So in this case, cafe. So you can see at the very bottom here, active navigation kind of started somewhere sometime into the navigation screen and navigation app being active on the main screen. So you can see the driving session is starting. At some point, we also get LTE connectivity. We reach the destination. She reverses into a parking spot. Camera pops up on the screen automatically. She parks. She switches off the car, and the system goes to sleep. So this is still kind of we're at that silver layer. So let's see how do we turn this into insights and impact and drive decision making. So let's say we start with fundamental questions here. So how many users in our fleet are actually engaging with our navigation in the latest release, for instance? So maybe we can ask then what's the percentage of them actually using active navigation? By the way, these numbers are made up for the slide, but just for sake of conversation. Then we can expand the scope. How do these metrics look version over version? How do they look in different types of vehicles within our fleet? So let's say R1T drivers, they tend to use active navigation less than maybe R1S users. Maybe they're a bit more adventurous. We can hypothesize and explore that further. So then we want to really zoom into navigation aspect of it, on the trip planning aspect of it. Whether this session was started from search or from a specific point of interest category, in this case, cafe. So let's say 40% of our R1Ts started from there. And then you can even go even further. How many of these actually happened whilst we didn't have connectivity? So this then becomes an invitation for our product teams and design teams to think about, okay, is there maybe opportunity to redesign our search or maybe point of interest categories, or maybe is there an aspect of offline maps that we need to optimize in order to cater for R1T users' needs when they go to desert. So there's a lot of questions, and then this becomes sort of an iterative process where questions are supported with data, then from there we get into opportunities to for improvement. Then based on feasibility and priority, we implement these, and then we track if these improvements actually made any difference. So then that loop really never stops with our design teams and our product teams. It enables that continuous collaboration and continuous innovation really in that space. So just to recap quickly, so before we open up the questions, just to say what we're seeing here. So starting with software-defined vehicles, that is a paradigm that's definitely here to stay. There are few companies like Rivian that are in position to offer software-defined frameworks as we are at the moment. There is also element of creating that user-centric experience when it comes to infotainment. So making sure that everything you put on that screen really serves a purpose, makes people's lives easier, and also resonates in terms of designs for people that are used to having different screens and technology in their lives. And then ultimately, this custom-built framework enables us to collect data, to make sense of that data, to start conversations, to answer questions with our stakeholders, to innovate, iterate, measure the impact, and ultimately offer experiences that are not possible at the moment. So that is that. Any questions?
All right. Car infotainment data-related questions? Over there. Big applause to the first question of the day.
Yeah, thanks, Nemanja, for this very interesting presentation. I have two questions. So first is, how big is the fleet at the moment? And the second one is, what of these things are uniquely Rivian's features or ideas or designs? Because you see similar things in other manufacturers, Tesla, BMW, and so on. So just want to understand better what is here uniquely Rivian's approach in this picture.
Thanks. First question was about fleet size. Yeah. Fleet size, our R1T and R1S fleet is about 90K. At the moment. The second question, what's unique about this? It's a difficult question purely because I don't work at Tesla, so I don't know. But what I think makes it special and unique for us is that deep integration with our vehicle controls, with our infotainment system, with our connectivity stack, so we can instrument many things that we wouldn't be able to do normally. So for us we've seen many off-the-shelf solutions. We talked to many people before we decided to build this. They always felt they couldn't take us maybe 60% there. The rest would be we would always be in the dark in terms of what our users are doing with our infotainment system and how to improve it. So that's, I guess, what I can say. I can't really compare with other manufacturers.
Oh, thank you.
Another question over there.
Hey, thank you, Nemanja, for your presentation. Well, quite inspiring. Uroš from Epic Games, actually, Unreal Engine, I know is a big part of the infotainment system. And within my team, we have people who are actually Rivian users, and they love the updates over the year, like new features coming in, and they say, you know, this vehicle really is looking into my habits and, you know, proposing stuff that take that into account. With that in mind, do you have any particular example of data-driven features your team has proposed or developed? Something, you know, that you learned from data that came in as a surprise and then ended up as a feature in a vehicle in the end?
That's a really good question. So I mentioned, I think I touched briefly on one of the slides, so this is slightly different data, not necessarily from our analytics framework, but from our telemetry data, where we take real-time charging sessions from our data, from our fleet, and then we understand if these charging sessions have been successful. So when you have an electric vehicle, there is this element of range anxiety, and you want to make sure that your charger is available for you, so that when you get to the charging site, it's there and you can actually charge your car. So one of the data-driven feature examples is using data from charging sessions to create charging score for each site that our fleet visits, so vehicles from our fleets are visiting, and then feeding that back to them in a form of a score that appears on a navigation system. So when you're planning your trip, you will have that information around charging score. So it's a score like in school, A to F. So that's an example of where you take fleet data in order to create a feature that then again goes back to fleet and helps drivers have better user experience. That also, artifact of that is then used in trip planner in general. So our routing engine will use that information and then navigate our users towards sites that have better reliability when it comes to charging. So just making sure that you always aim for sites that have A, let's say, score on if you're planning a longer journey.
All right. Another question over there.
Hi, thank you for the talk. My question is, can you just quickly tell us what kind of technologies do you use, for example, for data ingestion, data processing? What kind of cloud do you use? Is it public, cloudly available services or something else?
So in terms of cloud, there is a good presentation in the afternoon about all details about cloud from Veljko. I think he's in the room somewhere. So definitely recommend checking that out. But in terms of technologies that we use for our pipelines, we use Kafka, we use dbt, we use Databricks, usual sort of stuff. When it comes to dashboarding, we use Hex, Preset, and a variety of other tools. Sometimes we need some bit more complex stories to tell, so we would venture into maybe Streamlit or anything that really serves the specific use case.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Just one, by the way, if anybody's interested to talk about this, I'll be around the booth, so if you want to come have a look at our car infotainment system, and if you want to work with us, we're hiring for data scientists and data engineers, so please reach out either to me or to our lovely colleagues at the booth.
Definitely, that's an incredible conclusion, Nemanja. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Please, a big applause for Nemanja.
Thanks. Thank you.
See you at the car. See you at the car.
Right.
Take it for a spin.
I'll give
Thank
you
you.
this.